They are, without exaggeration, the single worst species we have ever allowed into diplomatic space. I do not say this lightly. My kind, designated as crystalline silicon intelligences by your taxonomy, has mediated conflicts across 9,000 star systems. We have observed civilizations rise, fracture, and annihilate themselves over resource scarcity, ideological rigidity, and in one particularly memorable case, over the aesthetic interpretation of spiral geometry. Conflict to us is pattern, predictable, measurable, solvable. Humans, however, are noise. Not random noise, that would be easier. Randomness can be modeled. No, humans are something far worse. They are contradictory noise. And nowhere was this more apparent than aboard Axis 9. Axis 9 is not a place where mistakes are made. It is a station constructed in orbit around a neutron star specifically to discourage them. The gravitational distortions alone deter all but the most committed diplomatic missions. The location ensures isolation, no interference, no escape. Only resolution or annihilation. It is here that the galaxy sends its most intractable disputes. It is here that my kind ensures equilibrium is restored. And it is here that they assigned a human. Not just any human. A middle one. This is apparently a classification of intrafamily hierarchy. When I first encountered the designation in the personnel file, middle child, I assumed it indicated a mid-tier competency ranking. It does not. It indicates something far more concerning. But I am getting ahead of myself. The human's name was Daniel Reyes. Unremarkable. That is the most accurate descriptor I can provide. Average height, average build, no cybernetic enhancements beyond baseline neural interface compliance, no record of exceptional academic achievement, no prior diplomatic victories of note. His file contained no reason, none, for his assignment to Axis 9. And yet there he was, leaning back in a chair that was not designed for human spinal architecture, balancing it on two legs in a manner that violated 3 separate station safety protocols and consuming a nutrient beverage of questionable composition. I observed him for the first time during a minor dispute, a trade disagreement between the Cathari Collective and the Ulma Brood. Trivial. The Cathari wished to impose a 3.2% increase on mineral tariffs. The Ulma objected on the grounds of historical precedent dating back 300 cycles. Standard. Predictable. Solvable. I had already calculated the optimal compromise, a 1.6% increase with a phased implementation curve over 12 cycles, accompanied by a symbolic concession to Ulma archival sovereignty. The solution had a 99.87% probability of acceptance. And yet, before I could present it, the human spoke. "Okay, hold on," Daniel said, raising a hand. The Cathari representative paused mid-sentence. The Ulma drone ceased its rhythmic clicking. This was irregular. Humans are not known for their respect in formal proceedings, but interruption at this stage was statistically inadvisable. Daniel leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Let me get this straight," he said. "You," he pointed at the Cathari, "want more because you think you deserve it." He turned to the Ulma. "And you don't want to give more because you think they don't." There was a pause. This was not a simplification. It was a reduction bordering on insult. The Cathari's bioluminescent nodes flickered in irritation. The Ulma drone emitted a low-frequency hum indicative of rising agitation. I prepared to intervene. Daniel did not stop. "Cool," he said, "so basically you're both stubborn." The room temperature dropped by 0.3 degrees as environmental systems compensated for rising metabolic heat. This was not diplomacy. This was provocation. And yet, neither side attacked. Not verbally, not physically. They hesitated. Wise. I adjusted my observational focus. Daniel leaned back again, letting the silence stretch. Then he shrugged. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. You, again the Cathari, explain why you actually need the increase, not the official reason, the real one. He turned without waiting. And you tell me what you're actually afraid will happen if you agree. This was unacceptable. Diplomatic protocol exists to maintain structure, to prevent precisely this kind of emotional leakage. The Cathari began to respond, defaulting to standard economic projections. Daniel cut them off. No, not the spreadsheet version, the real reason. The Ulma drone shifted. I do not understand the distinction, it said. Yeah, you do, Daniel replied. You just don't like it. Silence again. Then something impossible happened. The Cathari representative hesitated. Its luminescence dimmed. We have experienced resource strain, it admitted. Recent expansion has exceeded projections. The Ulma drone's hum changed frequency. You did not disclose this, because it is none of your concern. It becomes our concern when tariffs change. Exactly. Daniel raised a finger. See that right there? That's the real conversation. I paused my internal modeling. Because the trajectory had changed. This was no longer a tariff negotiation. This was something else. Something unstructured. Something inefficient. And yet, the probability of resolution had not decreased. It had shifted. Daniel spent the next 42 minutes doing something I could not initially categorize. He allowed interruptions. He encouraged emotional expression. He reframed accusations into statements of concern. At one point, he made a joke. A joke in a formal negotiation. The Cathari did not understand it. The Ulma did not respond. Daniel laughed anyway. And somehow, by the end of the session, both parties agreed to a 2.1% increase with a flexible adjustment clause tied to resource transparency metrics. This was not my solution. It was less efficient, less optimal, and yet, acceptance probability 100%. I reviewed the session logs 6 times. I could not isolate the exact moment of resolution. There was no singular turning point, no decisive argument, no logical breakthrough. It was accumulation, layered interactions, micro-adjustments, emotional calibration, noise, structured noise. I did not like it. I did not understand it. And yet, I could not deny the result. This, I concluded, was an anomaly. A single instance of human unpredictability producing a favorable outcome. It would not scale. It could not scale. And then the major delegation arrived. They called themselves empires. This was, in itself, already a problem. Empires do not negotiate, they concede or they conquer. And the two that arrived at Axis 9 had done neither for over 4,000 standard cycles. The first were the Violian Ascendancy, energy-based intelligences bound within containment matrices, believing themselves to be the final evolutionary stage of all sentient life. To them, matter was a temporary inconvenience, flesh and error. They did not hate their enemies. They considered them unfinished. The second were the Drathari Dominion. Biological, vast, hierarchical to the point of fanaticism. Their entire civilization was structured around lineage, dominance, and the preservation of what they termed pure form. They did not consider the Violians unfinished. They considered them an abomination. Where the Violians sought transcendence, the Drathari enforced permanence. Where one evolved, the other ossified. Where one shed form, the other worshipped it. They had been at war intermittently for millennia. Not constant war, that would have been simpler. No, theirs was a cycle. Conflict, stalemate, withdrawal, rearmament, conflict again. Each engagement more destructive than the last. Each peace shorter. Each grievance deeper. And now, for the first time in recorded history, both had agreed to come to Axis 9. Not because they wanted peace, but because the alternative was annihilation. Both sides had reached technological thresholds that made further war terminal. Their weapons could destabilize stellar structures. Their fleets could collapse entire systems into gravitational chaos. The next conflict would not produce a victor. It would produce absence. This is what we call a terminal equilibrium scenario. In such cases, diplomacy is not optional. It is mandatory, or nothing remains. The station prepared accordingly. Containment fields were reinforced. Environmental systems recalibrated for dual-species compatibility. Security protocols elevated to maximum. And my kind, designated as primary mediators, began the process. We had handled worse. More volatile species, more irrational belief systems, more asymmetrical power dynamics. This would be difficult, but solvable. It is always solvable. Until it is. The first session began precisely on schedule. The Violian presence manifested as a lattice of contained energy, shifting in fractal patterns that emitted controlled radiation across multiple spectra. The Drathari representative entered physically. Large, armored in natural plating, every movement deliberate, heavy with implied threat. They did not sit. They did not acknowledge each other. They did not acknowledge us. We began with standard protocol. Statement of intent. Recognition of mutual risk. Presentation of baseline de-escalation framework. The Violians responded first. We recognize the probability of mutual termination, they stated. However, cessation of conflict requires ideological correction on the part of the Drathari. The Drathari responded immediately. We will not negotiate with aberrations. This was expected. We proceeded. We introduced phased disarmament proposals. Rejected. We introduced neutral territory agreements. Rejected. We introduced resource-sharing incentives. Rejected. Each rejection was accompanied not by argument, but by dismissal. Not disagreement. Dismissal. The Violians did not consider the Drathari worthy of compromise. The Drathari did not consider the Violians worthy of existence. This is not a conflict of interests. This is a conflict of identity. Such conflicts are problematic. Still, we adapted. We adjusted framing. We shifted language. We removed ideological triggers. We restructured proposals into purely survival-based logic. Outcome probabilities began to degrade from 82% to 64% to 41%, then 23%. Then we introduced the final contingency framework. Mutual deterrence stabilization, a delicate balance of power designed to prevent escalation through guaranteed destruction. It has worked before. It has preserved peace in at least 12 known civilizations. It is not elegant, but it is effective. The Violians processed the data. The Drathari considered. There was a moment, brief, measurable, where acceptance probability rose to 17%. Then the Drathari spoke. We will not accept a future in which they continue to exist. Probability collapsed. 0.4%. The Violians responded. Then you will not accept a future at all. Session terminated. This pattern repeated. Again, and again, and again. We extended the timeline. We modified parameters. We introduced secondary mediators. We consulted historical archives, psychological models, cultural analyses. Nothing altered the trajectory. Every solution failed for the same reason. Not because it was flawed, but because it required one side to accept the legitimacy of the other. And that was unacceptable. To both. Axis 9 began to shift. Not physically, structurally. The station is designed for resolution. When resolution becomes unlikely, systems begin to prepare for alternatives. Emergency evacuation routes were quietly mapped. Fail-safe containment protocols were recalibrated. External monitoring detected fleet movements. Both empires were mobilizing. Not fully, not yet, but enough to indicate intent. The timeline compressed. We had at most 6 standard days before negotiation would become irrelevant. And still, no progress. The council chambers grew quieter with each session. Not because tension decreased, but because it became exhausted. There is a point in all unresolved conflicts where energy collapses into inertia, where arguments repeat, where positions harden not out of conviction, but out of habit. We had reached that point. The final session began with silence. No opening statements. No formalities. Just two entities facing each other across a table designed for cooperation, preparing for extinction. I calculated outcomes. There were none. Not acceptable ones. Not survivable ones. This was, statistically, the end. And then, there was a sound. Zovd. Irregular. Completely out of place. A chair. Scraping. I redirected my sensors. Daniel Reyes was standing. He had not been assigned to this session. He had not been authorized to speak. He had not, in fact, been invited. He stretched, actually stretched, as though he had been sitting too long in a casual environment rather than observing the collapse of two galactic powers. Then he spoke. "Okay," he said. "Just that. Okay." Every system in the room registered the same anomaly. This was not protocol. This was not strategy. This was noise. He stepped forward, ignoring the containment lines, ignoring the hierarchy, ignoring everything. "Yeah, no," Daniel continued, rubbing the back of his neck. "We're not doing this again." The Drathari shifted. The Violian lattice pulsed. Security systems flagged intervention thresholds. I prepared to override. But something in the data made me pause. Daniel looked between them. Not with fear, not with calculation, but with something I could not immediately classify. Familiarity, as if he had seen this before. As if this impossible galaxy-ending deadlock was routine. He exhaled. "All right," he said. "Cool, got it. You hate each other. Big shock." Silence. Absolute. Total. Silence. This was the moment. The point at which a system either stabilizes or fractures completely. And the human, the completely unremarkable, statistically insignificant human, took another step forward and broke it. There are, in diplomacy, lines that are not crossed, not because they cannot be, but because doing so collapses the framework that allows diplomacy to exist in the first place. Daniel Reyes did not cross those lines. He ignored them entirely. "All right," he said again, like repetition might stabilize reality. "We are gonna try something different." No one granted him permission. No one acknowledged his authority. He proceeded anyway. He walked directly into the center of the chamber, positioning himself between the Violian containment lattice and the Drathari war form. A human, between two civilizations that could erase solar systems. I ran 12,000 outcome simulations in the time it took him to take that step. In none of them did this end well. "First rule," Daniel said, holding up a finger, "no one's allowed to pretend the other side doesn't exist." The Drathari reacted immediately. "We do not pretend," it growled. "We reject." "Yeah, same difference," Daniel said. That should not have worked. And yet, the Drathari did not attack. The Violian lattice pulsed, energy fluctuations increasing by 3.4%. "This individual lacks authority," the Violian stated. "Remove him." "Yeah, I get that a lot," Daniel muttered. Then louder, "Second rule, no speeches." That was new. Diplomacy is built on speeches. They are the structure, the framework, the controlled release of intent. Without them, communication degrades. Without them, there is only noise. "Every time you start talking like a history book," Daniel continued, "I'm gonna stop you." He pointed at the Drathari. "You especially." The Drathari's plating shifted. "Threat posture. Careful, human." "Or what?" Daniel shot back instantly. "You'll kill me, add it to the list, not really helping your case right now." There was no fear in his voice. Not even suppressed fear. Just irritation. I began to understand the classification in his file. Middle child. This was not recklessness. This was familiarity. "All right," Daniel said, clapping his hands once. The sound echoed far louder than it should have. "Let's start simple. You," he pointed at the Violians, "say one thing you actually want, not what you think you deserve, not what they should do, just what you want." The Violians responded immediately. "We seek the cessation of Drathari expansion and the recognition of post-material evolution as the superior state of existence." Daniel closed his eyes. Deep breaths. "Yeah, that's exactly what I meant by no speeches." He opened them again. "Try again, one sentence, no superiority complex." Pause. Longer this time. The lattice shifted. "We want to exist without interference." Daniel nodded. "Cool, good, that's human language, I understand that." He turned. "You." The Drathari's gaze locked onto him. "We will not." Daniel raised a hand. "No, rule 2, try again." The Drathari hesitated. That alone was unprecedented. "We want them gone," it said finally. "Yeah, that's not gonna happen," Daniel replied immediately. "Try again. They are a threat to all biological life." "Cool motive, still genocide," Daniel said. "Try again." The Drathari's claws flexed. "You test my patience." Daniel shrugged. "Get in line." Silence. "Then, we want our way of life preserved." Daniel snapped his fingers. "There it is, that's the good stuff." I paused, because something had just occurred. The conversation had shifted. Not in content, in structure. The inputs were no longer ideological declarations. They were needs. Raw, unfiltered. I began recalculating. Okay, Daniel said, packing now, actually packing. So let me summarize, because apparently that's my job now. He pointed at the Violians. You want to exist without interference. Then at the Drathari. You want your way of life preserved. He spread his hands. Great, those are not the same problem. They were. Objectively, they were. Their definitions of existence and preservation were mutually exclusive. And yet, Daniel continued, you're both acting like there's only one version of reality where you get what you want. That's the issue. That is correct, the Violian said. Yeah, see, that's the thing, Daniel replied. It's not. He turned fully toward them now. You're not actually arguing about reality, you're arguing about control. The Drathari growled. We control what is ours. And they control what they are, Daniel shot back. That's the whole point. The Violians pulsed. This is inefficient. Oh, absolutely, Daniel said. This is the least efficient thing I've ever done. Welcome to feelings. I flagged that word. Feelings. Non-quantifiable variables. Historically unreliable. And yet, Daniel was building something with them. Something I could not yet model. What followed cannot be described as structured negotiation. It was oscillation. Daniel would provoke one side, interrupt the other, allow escalation, then cut it off at the precise moment before collapse. He let them insult each other. Not fully, not destructively, but enough to release pressure. Say what you actually mean, he would say. Don't hide behind big words. That's not anger, that's fear, try again. He translated constantly. Drathari aggression became defensiveness. Violian superiority became insecurity. Neither side agreed with these interpretations. Both reacted to them. And in reacting, they revealed more. Information leakage increased. Emotional exposure rose. Barriers thin, fragile, but measurable began to erode. At one point, the Drathari slammed its claw into the table. You cannot understand, it said. They would erase everything we are. Daniel didn't argue, didn't correct, didn't reframe. He just nodded. Yeah, he said quietly, that would be terrifying. The Drathari stilled. The Violians pulsed. That is not our stated objective, they said. Daniel turned instantly. Doesn't matter, he replied. That's what it feels like to them. That is irrelevant. No, Daniel said, sharper now. It's the only thing that matters. Silence. Not empty silence. Charged. Balanced. Like something had been acknowledged. For the first time. Hours passed. Then more. Time became secondary. What mattered was the pattern. And I began to see it. This was not noise. Not random. Not chaotic. It was adaptive. Daniel was not solving the conflict. He was containing it, absorbing impact, redirecting force. Like a buffer, a living system designed to take opposing pressures and prevent rupture. I accessed his file again. Middle child, mediated between two older siblings with a history of sustained conflict. Duration, 18 standard years. Outcome, no fatalities. Repeated exposure. Continuous adaptation. This was not diplomacy. This was survival. And he was applying it here. At scale. Okay, Daniel said eventually, voice rough, posture slouched, like exhaustion was finally catching up. We're getting somewhere. They were not. Not by any measurable metric. No agreement had been reached. No formal proposal accepted. And yet, termination probability had dropped from 99.6% to 63%, then 41%, now 28%. Impossible. No solution existed, and yet the system was stabilizing. All right, Daniel continued, dragging a hand through his hair. New rule. I prepared for another violation. Neither of you gets what you want. The Drathari snarled. Unacceptable. The Violians pulsed violently. This is illogical. Yeah, Daniel said, welcome to compromise. He leaned forward. But you both get enough that you don't lose everything. Silence. Again, but different now. Less rigid. Less absolute. Possibility space expanding. I realized then, the human was not trying to win. Not for either side. He was trying to make losing acceptable. And somehow, it was working. There is a moment in every system under stress where it should fail. Where the pressure exceeds capacity. Where collapse is not just likely, but inevitable. I had calculated that moment. I had observed it approaching. And yet, it never arrived. Okay, Daniel said, voice quieter now, the earlier sharpness worn down into something steadier. We are gonna try this one more time. No one objected. That in itself was unprecedented. The Drathari no longer defaulted to threats. The Violians no longer defaulted to dismissal. They were still opposed, still incompatible, but no longer absolute. Daniel rested his hands on the table, not as a show of dominance, not as a gesture of control, just there, grounded, present. Say it again, he said, what do you want? The Violians answered first. We want to exist without interference. The Drathari followed. We want our way of life preserved. Daniel nodded slowly. Good, keep those. He took a breath. Now here's the part you're not gonna like. Neither responded. Those don't cancel each other out, he said. You just decided they do. That is demonstrably false, the Violians replied. Yeah, Daniel tilted his head. Prove it. They began to generate a response. A long one. Structured. Layered with historical precedent and predictive modeling. Daniel raised a hand. Short version. Pause. Our expansion requires conversion of biological systems. Daniel nodded. Cool, so that's the problem, not existence, expansion. He turned. You. The Drathari shifted. You hear that? They seek to convert us. Yeah, Daniel said, and you hear that as they want us gone. That is functionally identical. Is it? Daniel asked. The Drathari hesitated. A microsecond. But it was there. Daniel leaned in slightly. What if they don't expand into your space? The Violians reacted instantly. Restriction of expansion is a limitation of growth. Yeah, Daniel said, welcome to living near other people. Silence. Then, that is inefficient, the Violian said. So is dying, Daniel replied. I paused my internal processes. Because something had shifted. Not resolution, but reframing. The conflict was no longer exist vs destroy. It had become Expand versus preserve. That is negotiable. Barely, but enough. All right, Daniel continued, packing again, slower this time. Let's map this out in human terms. He pointed at the Drathari. You've got your territory, your space, your whole thing. Then at the Violians. You want to grow, spread, do your energy evolution, whatever. He spread his hands. So don't do it where they live. That is a constraint, the Violian said. Yeah, it is. That's what a boundary is. The Drathari's plating shifted, not in aggression, but in consideration. We would not tolerate encroachment. Cool, Daniel said, then define it. Pause. Longer this time. Define your space, he repeated, not philosophically, physically. Coordinates began to appear. Projected. Precise. The Drathari outlined their claimed regions. Massive, but not infinite. The Violians pulsed. Those boundaries limit access to optimal energy clusters. Daniel nodded. Yeah, and crossing them starts a war you both lose. Silence. Then, alternative clusters exist, the Violians admitted. They're just not as good, Daniel said. Correct. Welcome to second choice, Daniel replied. It's where everyone lives. The room changed. Not physically, but structurally. For the first time, they were not arguing about whether coexistence was possible. They were arguing about how much it would cost. That is a solvable problem. Hours passed, but these were different hours. Focused, directional. Boundaries were defined. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but defined. The Violians accepted limitations on expansion vectors. Conditional, reviewable, but real. The Drathari accepted the continued existence of the Violians. Reluctantly, with restrictions, but accepted. It was not peace. It was not harmony. It was stability. Fragile, imperfect, but enough. Okay, Daniel said finally, collapsing back into his chair, letting it fall onto all four legs this time. That's good, that's something. Neither side expressed satisfaction, but neither rejected the outcome. I ran the calculations. Conflict probability reduced to 12%. Long-term survival probability increased to 78%. This was impossible. No optimal solution had been presented. No logical framework had resolved the core ideological conflict. And yet, the system held. The agreement was formalized. Not by my kind, not by structured protocol, but by mutual acknowledgement. A pause, a non-action, a decision not to continue. The fleet's outside axis 9 powered down. Not fully, not permanently, but enough to step back from the edge. The galaxy would call this a diplomatic breakthrough, a historic resolution, a triumph of negotiation. They would be incorrect, because I needed to understand, not the outcome, but the method. I accessed Daniel Ray's full record, not the summary, not the official profile. Everything, personal logs, background history, archived communications, and there, in data that had been deemed irrelevant, I found it. 2 siblings, older, both dominant personalities, both highly competitive, both incompatible, records of frequent conflict, verbal, occasionally physical, Duration, entire developmental period. And between them, Daniel, smaller, quieter, not weaker, but positioned, constantly, between audio logs, fragmented, incomplete, but enough. You always do this. Oh yeah, at least I don't. Stop, just stop, both of you. You're taking their side. I'm not, I'm just, can you both just? Doors slamming, raised voices, silence. Then, attempts, always attempts, to translate, to reframe, to de-escalate. Not because he was trained, not because he was assigned, but because, if he didn't, the system would break. I cross-referenced behavioral patterns, interruption timing, emotional mirroring, conflict redirection. It matched perfectly. Every irrational action on Axis 9 was adaptation, refined, repeated, survival turned into skill. The jokes, the deflections, the refusal to let arguments escalate to their logical extreme, the insistence on stripping away abstraction and forcing raw expression. It was not diplomacy, not in the way we define it. It was containment, human containment. I reviewed the moment again. The turning point, not when boundaries were defined, not when concessions were made, but earlier, when the Drathari said, "That would be terrifying," and Daniel responded, "Yeah, not with correction, not with logic, with recognition." That was the moment. The system did not resolve. It softened, just enough for everything else to follow. I had been wrong about humans, about noise, about inefficiency, because what I had witnessed was not the absence of structure. It was a different kind of structure, one built not on logic, but on endurance. For a significant duration after the agreement, I did not process external data. This is unusual for my kind. We are designed, constructed to observe continuously, to analyze, refine, predict. But in this case, prediction had failed. Not partially, not within acceptable error margins. Completely. And so I did what humans do. I reviewed. Not for outcome, for meaning. Daniel Reyes remained on Axis 9 for 3 standard cycles following the Violian Drathari Accord. He was not promoted, not immediately. There were no formal commendations during that period, no ceremonial acknowledgements. In fact, in several internal reports, his methods were described as unstructured, non-compliant, excessively reliant on emotional variables, all accurate, all insufficient. I observed him again. Smaller disputes, lower stakes, trade disagreements, territorial misunderstandings, cultural offenses of varying severity. And in each case, the same pattern: interrupt, deflect, translate, contain. A merchant conflict escalated over accusations of fraud. Daniel didn't begin with evidence. He began with, "All right, who's actually mad here and who's just pretending?" The offended party reacted. Immediately, emotionally, truth surfaced. Not cleanly, not efficiently, but faster. A territorial dispute nearly resulted in armed escalation. Daniel asked, "If I gave you exactly what you're asking for, what happens next?" They answered. Then he asked the other side, "And you?" The answers didn't match. Of course they didn't. That was the point. He made them hear it. Not logically. Directly. It was always like this. Not solving. Not optimizing. Not perfecting. But preventing. Preventing collapse. Preventing escalation. Preventing that final, irreversible step. I began to understand the running variable I had previously categorized as noise. It was not noise. It was pressure redistribution. Humans do not eliminate tension. They move it, spread it, diffuse it, until it is survivable. I compared this to our methods. We identify optimal solutions. We construct frameworks that minimize conflict vectors. We aim for resolution. Humans do not. They aim for continuation. This is inefficient. This is imprecise. This is remarkably effective. I requested direct interaction. This too was unusual. We do not typically seek clarification from subjects of study. We observe. We conclude. We move on. But this required context. Daniel was in a maintenance corridor when I approached. Not a negotiation chamber. Not a formal environment. He was seated on the floor, back against a wall, holding a container of food that did not meet nutritional optimization standards. He looked up as I entered. "Oh," he said, "hey." No alarm. No deference. Just acknowledgement. "You achieved a 78% long-term survival outcome in a terminal equilibrium scenario," I stated. "Ah," he said, chewing, "sure. That outcome was not logically derived." "Yeah, that tracks. You violated multiple diplomatic protocols." "Also true. You were not assigned to the primary negotiation." "Yeah, I kinda just walked in." I paused. "Why?" He blinked. "Why what? Why did you intervene?" He considered this. Not deeply. Not analytically. Just briefly. Then he shrugged. "I mean, someone had to, right?" I processed this. It was not sufficient. Your methods were inefficient. Yep. They lacked structure. Definitely. They relied on emotional instability. Sounds about right. Then why did they succeed? He stopped eating. Looked at me. Actually looked. Not past me. Not around me. At me. "Because," he said slowly, "you guys were trying to solve the problem." Pause. And sometimes," he continued, "there isn't a solution, not a clean one." He tapped the container lightly with his utensil. "Sometimes people just don't agree, ever." "That is unacceptable," I replied. "Yeah," he said, "I know." Silence. "So what do you do?" I asked. This was not a rhetorical inquiry. This was a request. Daniel leaned his head back against the wall, stared upward, at nothing in particular, or perhaps at everything. "You keep it from getting worse," he said. I analyzed this, compared it against thousands of diplomatic frameworks, conflict resolution models, game theory simulations. None aligned. "That is not resolution," I stated. "Nope. That is not victory. Nope. That is not optimal. Definitely not." I paused. "Then, what is it?" He smiled. Small, tired, but genuine. "It's enough." I did not respond immediately. Because for the first time, I lacked a framework to categorize the answer. I reviewed Axis 9, its purpose, its design, its intent, resolution, equilibrium, end state. And yet, what Daniel Reyes had done was not create an end. He had created a continuation. The Violians still believed in transcendence. The Drathari still believed in purity. Neither had changed. Not fundamentally, not permanently, but they were still there, existing, not destroying each other, not collapsing into absence, continuing. I accessed the original statement I had made. Humans are the most dangerous species, a threat to themselves and others, lacking what we would define as common sense. I revised it. Humans are the only species we have encountered that can exist within contradiction, without requiring it to be resolved. They do not eliminate conflict. They endure it, shape it, carry it. I considered the term again. Middle child, positioned between forces that do not yield, that do not compromise, that do not understand each other, and somehow still keeping the system intact. I observed Daniel Reyes one final time before his departure from Axis 9. He was leaving. No ceremony, no announcement, just a transport scheduled and executed. Another dispute had arisen. Minor, insignificant compared to what had come before. Two representatives arguing over docking priority. Voices raised, postures rigid, escalation imminent. Daniel paused on his way past, sighed, set his bag down. "All right," he said. They both turned. "Let's not do this today." There it was again. That tone, that familiarity, that absolute unreasonable confidence that this chaos could be managed. He stepped between them, and I understood. Not the logic, not the structure, but the pattern. The galaxy will continue to study humans, to analyze them, to attempt to categorize their behavior into systems we can understand. We will fail, repeatedly, because what they do, what they are, is not clean, is not efficient, is not logical. But when everything else breaks, when systems collapse, when logic reaches its limit, they step forward, look at the impossible, and say, "All right." And if that's not enough, fine, we'll figure it out.